We're going to move over to Wolfgang Krebs. He's Agile Quality Lead at Broadcom Enterprises, and his presentation is Our Journey Towards Continuous Testing. So I can see the presentation, so
I can start. So thanks for this warm welcome. Thanks. So welcome everybody to my talk about our journey towards continuous testing. So it's also a pleasure for me to talk to you today at the Tesena Fest, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all. So I liked the presentation of Andre before because he mentioned a lot of things that in the end I experienced in the same way in our journey. And so let me just tell you briefly how I came across this topic and why I'm talking to you about this today. So just about me, I'm here now since 15 years in the software development and developing and delivering. But 8 years ago, I've really switched over to the quality topics. It really got interesting. And 1 year ago, I joined as Agile Quality Lead Broadcom at the Automation.ai division. And to be honest, I didn't expect such a journey when I started over there. And even if I would have expected, I wouldn't have thought that it will work out like this as I experienced it. But what I've definitely convinced is if I would have had someone who had told me what I would like to share to you today, it would have been easier because then I could have benefit of this experience, of the pitfalls as well, the successes and also the downsides of such a journey in order to make it maybe better and have a better outcome at the point where I'm right now. Although I'm happy where I am, so that's okay. So what you're gonna hear in the next 30 minutes, let this picture be the representation of the state 1 year ago. I had a goal which was given to me. It's a blurry on the left upper corner, but there were a lot of unknowns out there. But at least I will tell you a little bit more about the goal and why our existing CI/CD pipeline. I'm not very sure which generation it is. Andre for sure could help me. But the existing CI/CD pipeline wasn't enough. And although I saw the goal at the very end, I figured out that every journey starts with its preparation. And what I learned 1 year ago, that the preparation was a journey in itself. And from my perception, a too long journey, but be your own judge on that. So what you also will hear is staying agile is key in such a journey. And I'm not talking about Scrum and so nice processes. I'm really talking about staying agile in the mindset in every phase along this road. And be really adapted towards change. And this brings me to something which maybe some of you know. There is a nice guy called John Cutter who talked a lot about change. And what I realized along this journey, it's only 1/3 about the technology, and it's about 2/3 about the people. And this is also why you won't get a recipe from me today, because there is no recipe on a journey towards continuous testing. I only can give you hints and show up typical pitfalls, but you have to do it on your own and to figure out how you tackle all the different challenges that are there ahead with the change coming along. So that's what is on the buffet table for the next 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'm only, I think, 25. But before I dive into it, I would like to ask all of you where you are currently in this kind of journey. And therefore, please go to Slido and answer the question. So may I ask you, Phil, to open up the questions so that we can get the feedback on that. So thanks for that. So
I'll share it on my screen.
Perfect. So I'm really interested in. So there is one who has already a completely continuous testing in place? A lot of, yes, that's great. So I can't tell you anything if all of the colleagues have already a complete continuous testing in place. Let's see if you can still learn something. So that I'm a little bit surprised, but yeah, let's see.
Okay, it's getting a little bit more balanced now. The early adopters were quick to answer.
Yes, obviously they are proud of it, and I'm sure we are on the testing conference, so hopefully a lot of them are already there where we would like to be. Nevertheless, so I will start sharing back. Maybe the result is changing over time. So let me just tell you where we started. So as I said before, we had already a clear goal, and now guess what? What was this goal? We want to have a new tool for testing in order to make us do continuous testing. And as I was used to that, I asked a lot of questions, and what I realized that in the end we were in quite a good shape. We had already a complete CI/CD pipeline. We had automated tests on each and feature branch. We had roughly about 700 provisioning, so means deployments on different OS and database variations per day, running tests on that, having nightly runs of tests with 60,000 results. And every sprint, we shipped something towards our internal customer. So why we don't call this continuous testing? And when I had a closer look, the last sentence, we had already hell of test case maintenance. So that wasn't really a good one. And what I also figured out, this real continuous testing was done by very few people. So very few took care of the test, very few took care that all of these things are working, but most of them didn't care about. And why they didn't care about, the answer is pretty easy. It happened far too late, in this pipeline, and the developers or the engineers didn't care about the results. The results were sometimes flaky, sometimes, and I think here what Andre told us before comes in. If you can rely on your CI/CD pipeline and you can rely on the test results, somewhen you don't care anymore. And we wanted to get rid of this. But you will agree with me that this introduction of a new tool can solve this. And so we started to reshaping our goal where we would like to head to, and it was making quality a behavior. So it shouldn't be a topic for one person anymore or for few persons. It should be really a topic for each and every one in the different teams. So we have roughly about 12 teams working on a product, and all of those teams should care about the quality. And it's not someone who is currently figuring out what kind of test result is failing and why does it failing, because their team XYZ has done a change that breaks the test or the nightly running and so on. So it's really a responsibility for each and every one. So we reshaped the goal, but what immediately came on top of that we had some short-term goals figured out, which is increasing the transparency for each and every one. So why doesn't it work? Then we had, again, thanks to Andre, we had to invest into maintainability and testability. We had to enable fast feedback instead of getting a result one day back. We also have our own tools, which we sell, where we say, okay, we can do selective testing. It's good to have them, but we also have to use it. And furthermore, we wanted to make the engineers to care for production. But this was so far ahead for them that they simply said, we can't care because we have no influence on that. And having this all on the table, it immediately came up to me, this is no longer a technical journey. This is a change ahead. So it's change management, a lot of change management to do. And that's why Mr. Kotte comes into place. Maybe you know him from change management books or something like this. So I will show you a reference later on. So you really should take a look at it, because it really helps if you go on such a journey in order to get continuous testing into place, because it's not about the tools, it's about the mindset, as it is for Agile as well. So what we did as a first step, we stopped everything. And now imagine you have a fully packed car ready to go on vacation. The whole family is sitting already in the car, and you're telling them, hey guys, it's nice that you have a tool in mind, but a lot of steps back, because we have to figure out where do we want to go. The motivation definitely was not very motivational for them, but I think it was a very necessary step, because we had really to figure out the preparation. So we really enabled the engineers to see what they do. We visualized the pipeline, we visualized the build, the CI/CD and the build pipeline. We even got more data. So we started to do root cause analysis, why the test's failing, why the pipeline is failing. And what we immediately stated all the time, it's not about the tool, but what we had to learn, it's all about the old tool, because it narrows really the mind from all the people, because they are used to have the old tool, which was very good, had a lot of results, and it worked for years, but they were really sticking to this old behavior, and we had to break this. And so we visualized whatever we could in order to raise the sense of urgency for them, something to change, that they need fast feedback if they really want to go towards continuous testing. And we also visualized them how a future CI/CD pipeline could look like, not from a tooling perspective, from an expectation perspective. When can I get a feedback? I want to have a feedback after 5 minutes. I want to have a feedback after 15 minutes with even more data and so on, so that I can really trace back from my change to the failing test case, to the failing pipeline topics, so that I do not have to invest too much time when I'm changing the system. And if this is in place, I really can care what I'm doing. But it took time. So this was nothing that we could do within weeks. It took us at least 2 months in the end to visualize all those things, so that they really saw where they are failing, why the build was failing, why the CI/CD pipeline was failing. They even suggested what to do, which kind of test they want to have in future, except of the tests what we had. And this immediately also brought up to the question, okay, we need a different tool, because our current tool cannot fulfill all the things, what to do with all the tests, because they are valuable. So we had to migrate them. So this was then the decision in the end. We want to migrate our tests. We need a tool. We had to figure out a tool. In the end, it was pretty easy. All the tools on the market almost can do everything. When we did some assessment, we figured out, okay, the overlap is quite big. So let's invite some experts. Let's took some requirements and choose the tool which fits best to our needs, to our pipeline, and also to our technologies. And this lifted the fog a little bit. So we had a new waypoint down along our journey. And in this case, it's just a tool. So we have chosen at this time the robot framework, which fit perfectly what we wanted to do. So if you're interested in, we can talk about this more in the coffee talk afterwards. But the more important decision was which language to use with the tool. Of course, Python comes natively with robot, but this was not the reason why I've chosen Python. There was a big discussion about that, but a very crucial one, since we have 4 different languages where we develop our different applications, and we didn't want to prefer any one of them. And furthermore, we wanted to introduce a new language, which is necessary for all the containerization, which was Python. So we had a good reason to introduce a test language for writing test cases, which was Python, not preferring any of the application languages, introducing a language that we will need in the future, and which is also easy to learn for newcomers. So I think this is the more important decision than the tool itself. And of course, we had now to do kind of a migration. So doing this along the normal work wouldn't have brought any success, since we have a fully packed pipeline. You know, test automation doesn't come for free, even more when you have to migrate all the other test cases. So we brought a new team in place, and this year, February or March, I think I don't have to tell a lot of more things. We started with starting this team, and this nice guy called COVID made things a little bit more difficult. Although it was luck for us, because we really had to have clear communication channels, having a reusable knowledge transfer to bring into place, since we couldn't do this on site. Everything was remote. And this strict formalism helped us a lot in gathering a lot of reusable knowledge, a lot of reusable information that we wouldn't have done if everything would have been on site. So one benefit, although we couldn't meet any one of the colleagues over all the time, it helped us a lot. And just as an information for you, really be strict on those formalism, because if you don't do it, the informal way of doing it is not a good one. Coming back to our change management, so we wanted to raise some sense of urgency that we have something to change, so the people realized, okay, that's okay that we do this. But to be honest, I want to see some benefit, and this is one of the key points in any change. We have to define something that we deliver out of this new way of testing along our product, which is easy visible and it's fast. So it should be a quick win, so that the people still are trusting in the new way of doing it. So we defined a kind of minimum viable test automation or testing product, and we thought it's a good thing that we focus on the framework, that it is tightly integrated with the IDE of the engineers, and we decided to start with the REST and the component integration test on a very low level, so to give the developer really a fast feedback on what he is doing. Yes, of course, this worked out. And in order to do the migration, so I can talk a lot about this approach, why we've chosen it. So we really did weekly reviews. We did demo meetings together with the engineers, the quality engineers, and let them review what the new team brought on the table. We also involved the product owners in order to review if the test still is necessary or is it can be skipped, so that we do not take over any non-usable test case anymore. So we really shortened the cycle as much as we could, and it worked out. So after 2 sprints, we had the full test automation framework set up, integrated with the IDE. So the framework is really a strong one. We even started the analysis of the test cases within 1 sprint, and luckily we invited some external reviewers. So thanks Marcel from Tesena, who did this for us, for reviewing the framework and also objectifying what we did at this point in time, to give also all the engineers some trust into that we are not doing some management stuff. So it's really something that is for them, which is also from external reviewed. I think it helps a lot building trust into this new solution. But as said before, we had an MVP which focused on tooling and tests. It focused on the tooling of the engineers, that's true, and we were getting a lot of results. So this is the speed that we had on creating and developing test cases in the new framework. So the red line is how the test cases have been implemented, as you can see. So a lot of test cases created, working, running. But at this point in time, we realized, yes, it works. It works on the machine of the developer. It works on the machine of the QA. But everybody was expecting that it is running immediately on the CI/CD pipeline, because no one of the developers want to run it locally on his machine anymore. So yes, we have chosen the MVP, but we didn't choose it very wisely. So this was the point in time of this journey. Okay, let's further shape our product, and enabling a CI/CD pipeline, which is really giving fast feedback, of course, speeds up the adoption of this new testing stuff that is in place, but also raises a lot of awareness and concerns. So first of all, we had a running CI/CD pipeline, as stated in the beginning, and the engineers were really looking very closely when we told them, now we are changing the pipeline and we are adding something, because we weren't allowed to version the current flakiness, but also the trust into the CI/CD pipeline. So we really had to have a close look. We had to have a close look on the CI/CD pipeline, so that we never break it and make it more worse than before. So it was like changing the tires on a running car. Nevertheless, we plugged it into the CI/CD pipeline. We came also then across that we had to have a closer look on the test data management, since the more and more test cases come along. The test data get more and more complex, how to manage this. All the technical challenges, to be honest, were not a really challenging topic. So adding UI test, adding testability, this was, I think, very straightforward. What we changed in the meantime is that we really started to do for each and every item that we, from a technical perspective, added to the product, or is that we really started to do PUCs, adapting the product in the right manner. So really to uncover unforeseen scenarios and also to uncover technical challenges earlier than we did it before. So adapting all the time was key for this journey along more continuous testing. So finally, we managed to have containers in the CI/CD pipeline, and I think this is a snapshot 2 months ago. So what we managed in our pipeline was to have all the end-to-end scenarios that we had in the beginning, which were flaky and nobody took care of. So we had a first bunch of them moved towards into the build part. So immediately after build got triggered, 200 tests of testing the component were running, giving the developer immediate feedback if he has broke the component, and this within 5 minutes. Furthermore, we then start provisioning this new component onto our system tests, and also there 120 system tests were running out of 3,000 that we have still to do, but nevertheless running on the different operating systems and giving them feedback. So this was what we achieved, and suddenly the developers got more and more involved, and so they suddenly also raised a lot of concerns that we didn't expect at this point in time, because now they got feedback and now they realized they have to take care of it. So we had a lot of things in there. So we had established some mocks in order to isolate a different component. We managed to ingest test data. To be honest, this was a very challenging one, since we have various various databases as part of our products, and the test data needs to be injected in the different kind of databases. So this is still something that we have to solve. So we are not done with that. Nevertheless, it works and gives feedback. And what we will start right this week, so this is a very recent one, is that we only allow to merge on green. So whenever the tests are running green, the developer or the engineer is allowed, or the team is allowed to merge into the master. So this runs on each and every feature branch. It runs on each and every bug fix branch when the component has been changed. So all those things are triggered by the Bazel only if there is a change in the specific component, only if there is only then there's a container built. So it also uses very specifically only those resources and only runs those test cases that are really relevant are for the changes in the specific component, at least those ones which are running in the early stages. For the system tests, of course, everything runs when a new component has been pushed onto the system. So, of course, a lot of things have to be done. And what we realized, especially on the UI, and I think it will be not surprising, that the selectors are still somehow flaky on the on the UI test. So this is something that we have, especially on the system test, to solve. And the next big challenge will be also to involve a lot of more third-party items which are connected to our systems. So here we really have to ensure that we also manage this kind of challenges. So as mentioned before, 5 minutes here, 20 minutes here. So this really enables now the developers to react on their changes, to get fast feedback. Nevertheless, this fast feedback also was now the point in time where the engineers said, okay, now we have the feedback, now we want to change something. And this is now the time for us to slow down a little bit, to cure what we have built in so far, because the developers are now saying, okay, now we see how it works. Now we see that we are responsible for the tests because we are breaking, we have to fix them. So all the reviews, the test code reviews, have been now a little bit more in deep. They're really looking more closely on what they get from the migration team. And also they are now adapting the test code and reviewing the test code. And they are feeling responsible for the test code. So this is, I think, one of the biggest success factors the successes that we had over the last month, that now the engineers really feel responsible also for the test code and not only for the application code, and they want to improve it. This comes with a big challenge, since the developers tend a little bit, or the engineers tend a little bit to make it more maintainable. But this goes sometimes a little bit against readability and also simplicity. And there you really have to be very careful that you don't make the test code more complicated than the original application code. So we need to keep this test simple, but of course we will refactor. And also what we currently do a lot is do a lot of marketing and common best practice sharing and sharing knowledge about the framework, doing regular demos, simply in order to now convince all the others who are still a little bit resist against this change that this is really helpful. I think we have convinced the most of the stakeholders, so they are really sustaining the change at the moment, and all the others we still have to convince. I cannot give you a percentage of the people that are already convinced, but it's getting higher, I think, every day. So if I would summarize what have been the key takeaways of the last 6 months, including the preparation phase 8 months, I only can encourage everyone, wherever he is in this journey, to revise the goal and the vision and question it if it's really the right one, because it's not about the tools, it's not about any pipeline stuff, it's about the mindset of the people. And this cannot be solved with technical stuff. You need to go over the typical change management topics. You need to keep the transparency always up and running. And so we started during the preparation phase in making everything transparent as possible, but you need to keep it up. So currently we are realizing that we have a lot of results, we have a lot of fast feedback, but we need to make it more transparent, and also to others who are not maybe currently directly related with the change, so that also the others see how the pipeline is going and so on. So the reporting, I think Andre mentioned it, the reporting is, and all the metrics out of those pipeline stuff is not the best. So we have to do there something. To remind everyone, it's not about the tool itself, but it's about the old tool. Whatever tool you have currently in place, be careful, because people stick to it, but they stick in their mind to it. And before they change to a new approach, and we did change a lot the approach of testing and which kind of stages we have and so on, you need to get rid of the old tool and how they did testing with the old tool. Otherwise, you cannot change the way of doing it. I think, and this was something that helped us a lot, familiarize with change management pattern, because you will see them all over the time. If you don't create any sense of urgency to the people, they won't move. If they don't see why they have to change, and what kind of benefits they get, what kind of quick wins they get, they will not move anywhere. And all the other things like having a vision in place, sustain the change over the time, I think it's very important. So you see the nice reading over there. So I only can recommend it. And the biggest learning for our engineers over the last weeks has fast feedback comes with responsibility. So really always be clear on that. Yes, you get fast feedback, but then you have to do something. And if you break it, you have to fix it. And now we are in the shape that we really can tell the engineer, you've broken it, you can fix it, do it. And it seems that it was not expected by everyone. And you can't do too much communication. So really talk about every time with everyone what you're doing, where you are, how you can do it. So communication is key in the whole journey. So we have to finalize our journey. So we have now a good number of test cases in place. And now we simply just go down the road. But to be honest, we are back at a certain point in time. There are a lot of unknowns over there, and I'm sure we have to tackle them, and we will tackle them over time. But we have to do it. So although we had in the past a lot of end-to-end tests, we have to establish them again. We also want to increase further the shipping frequency because nightly isn't enough. So we really want to push more often towards production. And really doing continuous deployment instead of continuous delivery. We want to establish also on each and every sprint some demos on the real product, not just it works on my machine and showing over there, to increase the visibility of a working product. Of course, extending our testing towards other quality aspects like non-functional and like performance and so on. So this is something that we haven't in our CI/CD pipeline automatically right now. And also, of course, enable our own product like selective testing. And finally, and I think I stated in the very beginning, we want to further establish behavior-driven thinking and testing and development. But this, of course, starts before, right before the CI/CD pipeline starts. So it's about product management, and there we really have also to do our task and our challenges. And therefore, I really would like to push much more on that topic as well. So this is in the end what we did over the last 6 months. I think it was a lot. There is a lot ahead. And with these words and with this outlook, maybe you will have another chance to talk about what will happen in the next year. I would like to close my talk. Hopefully you can take some topics and use for your own journeys, although most of you have already solved the continuous testing journey. Maybe you have a different one. Ours, due to the complexity of the product, is, let's say, a challenging one. In our case, we have accepted the challenge, and I think we had a good progress on that. And from that point of view, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and feel free to ask now.
Okay, Wolfgang, thank you very much. Now we've got three questions on Slido, so I'll just present them. Can you see them?
I think the first
one I left there because I think a lot of people are probably asking the same question. The answer is yes. Yeah, so we will we will share the videos to everybody who registered for the event. So I'll just mark that one. So we have two questions. What would you do differently if you could start again?
What I would do differently. So this is what was the ingoing statement. Yes, I would do differently. Not letting a new tool come up that early, because it was really a hard journey to get a tool out of the minds. So starting off with completely fresh minds would help a lot. And I think I would even more invest into visibility and in transparency in order to further raise the sense of urgency for the people. And I would definitely start with the CI/CD pipeline integration of the new testing tools from the first moment on. It would have slowed down the quick win, because integration of the new tool into the CI/CD pipeline was a difficult step with all the containerization and so on. But it would have been beneficial for the acceptance and for all the trust into this new solution much earlier than we had. So especially the CI/CD stuff, start from the very first point on, although it would trigger a lot of more questions with the engineers, because they are more involved from the very beginning. So in our case, we could start a little bit isolated and get some first experiences, but without having concerns of the engineering teams. But it would have been better to involve them from the very beginning with the CI/CD pipeline and tackle the concerns earlier.
Yep. Next question again from, question from Dev has jumped up to the top. You mentioned you tell devs you broke it, fix it. Why the anger? BDD is about collaborating as a team and working together, not individually.
That's true. Within the team, it's easy. So scaling this topic. So I'm pushing now a change into it, and of course maybe the first test is successful, and in the past it was like this, that I couldn't trace back to the change what I've did of what I've done, and out of that historical reason, people were not used that if a test case fails, it can directly relate it back to me. And so this mindset, I break a test case, I have to fix it. So I'm not talking about a new test case that I have built because I'm in adding new feature. I'm talking about regression. So a regression which maybe is 10-year old. So it's a very old feature, and I'm breaking it. I have to fix it. So people are simply not used to dig down into topics which are really, really maybe old and maybe not relating with themselves, but they have broken it, so they have to fix it. So with the old framework, there was no direct relationship possible between the change and why they have broken the test case, because there were, let's say, 20, 100 commits in an end-to-end test in a broken one. Now it's directly related, and you have to dig into topics that you might have not seen before in the code, because it's not such a young product. So it's a 20 years old product, which is working fine, but it has, of course, a lot of regression then in it. And if you break it, it's hard to convince why should I dig into that topic.
Okay, just a question related to that. They get quicker feedback. Does that mean that they actually spend more time trying to write better code before putting it into the pipeline, or do you find that they just throw?
No.
So
no,
it's not like, okay, I'll just try it. And when it passes, it's okay.
No, they really now try to not to break it anymore, so to learn from them. So really investigating and also doing more investigation, upfront discussion, and also, of course, we have further optimized also the code, the static code analysis and so on. So they really do not break any test case. So that's in the end the goal for the developers. Okay. So they really try to avoid such situations.
And you're keeping metrics on the number of failed tests, so you can say,
yes.
number is increasing or decreasing, so you can give them feedback. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so the third question from Honza is, what's the biggest challenge for you now?
To get really the whole crowd behind this new way of working, behind this new way of testing. So really sustain this change. I think this because there are some technical challenges ahead, and of course there are some pitfalls where you always can say, okay, it's the new framework, it's the new way of doing it. So really to sustain this change, I think this is the biggest challenge right now. And the second topic will be definitely all this compatibility testing. So our products are really working on multiple operating system, multiple, also a lot of exotic one. And to get all those things technically solved is maybe challenging technical point of view, but this can be solved. But every technical challenge could bounce back into, yeah, I always said this solution will not work. And this is what we really have to avoid questioning too much, or with each and every technical challenge, the mindset change. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge.
Okay, I've read the book. It's a nice one.
Yes.
It's a nice story about penguins on an iceberg that's melting, and also it's a very interesting study of personality types, who to involve in your crisis management team. And I think we all know from personal experience, when the pressure's on, then the solutions and the motivation comes to try and solve the problem. So I think it's from my experience very much, as you said, the communication. You can't communicate enough. I think psychologists say 7 times and people start to understand that you're being serious, at least. So I think that's some key lessons learned for the less technical people amongst us. But definitely, if you want to change your mindset, then you have to get the buy-in, which you can only get through communication and showing people that there's something in it for them. You know, it's, as you said, it's not management stuff. We're doing it for them. So that was a key point as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much.